Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Sammy. So there's rumors flying around, and I wanted to do a video on this data miners that are claiming that zero point 0.4 that's coming in December might introduce a massive POE 1 content delve. Now, before we panic or celebrate, let's be clear. This is not confirmed. It's speculation, but I wanted to do a video on this speculation and that it may actually make some sense, especially when you look at where PoE 2 is right now and what the game needs most. But before we go any further, I want to give credit where credit is due. I discovered this topic or this data mine leak thanks to Jorgen, who posted a great breakdown of the data leak and what it could mean. I'll link his video in the video description. Make sure you go check it out if you really want to break down and all the full technical details. He does an amazing job of breaking it down, so I highly recommend watching his video. And shout out to Jorgen, and thank you for highlighting this topic, Jorgen. Thank you, really appreciate it. So in this video, I'm going to break down what the delve system could mean for Path of Exile 2, why I think it could potentially be another huge step forward for crafting and the end game, and how it may fit perfectly into the design direction GGG's been taking since patch 0.3. Let's dive in. If you look at GGG's history on the major updates for Path of Exile 2, their history so far, each major patch has focused on tightening or improving the foundation of Path of Exile 2. Now, I say that tongue-in-cheek because let's just say 0.1 and 0.2 were nice attempts, and I'm being generous. So really 0.3, the third edict, is the first one that really, I believe, took a step forward for Path of Exile 2. It redefined the campaign flow by introducing Act 4 and the mini acts, or the interludes, whatever you want to call it, and removing the monotony and the redundancy of having to do Acts 1 and 3 in cruel mode, which huge step for improving the campaign. They introduced asynchronous trade, which is a grand slam 5 times over. Everybody's loving it. Something that said was never going to be done, and it's in the game, and everybody's loving it. They overhauled crafting. Okay, where we were in crafting in 0.2 and where we are in crafting in 0.3, night and day, another grand slam. And those are just to name a few. And I think slowly the game is becoming more cohesive. But the one piece that's still lagging behind, and yes, I'm not molding, I'm not freaking out, and I understand they're still cooking, but the one thing that's lagging behind is the end game identity. No one can deny that. We know that. It's no secret. I've said it a million times. The end game is PoE 2's weakest link. But right now, the mapping system has a solid framework with the changes, especially after 0.31, but it still needs more depth. GGG has already shown they're not afraid to rework the core systems in the game, and we already know December 4th's patch is all going to be endgame focused. It's going to be the endgame update. Yes, we know we're also getting a new class, Druid, but its focus is mainly on the endgame. So if you're grinding gear games and you want to fix the endgame and add more player agency and progression, what's one proven formula that does both? And the answer might be delve. It's scalable, it's repeatable, and it blends exploration and risk reward progression in a way that keeps people hooked for hundreds of hours. So while it's still technically a rumor, a delve-style feature fits Grinding Gear Games' trajectory perfectly. Now, if GGG is really bringing delve back, it's not going to be a copy and paste from Path of Exile 1. We've seen they don't do that. When they revisit old systems, they rebuild them and they make it fit PoE 2's pacing and philosophy. So it's not going to be a copy and paste. But some players have speculated that the abyssal layer from O3 could somehow tie into the potential delve system visually and thematically. It fits, but it's important to be realistic here. League mechanics don't always carry forward. Sometimes they make it into core gameplay, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they get completely reimagined. So instead of assuming a direct link, let's look at what PoE 2 version of delve could mean if it's being built fresh. Now, before we get there, I do want to say I would love for them to put the abyssal mechanic into the core of the game. One of the things that makes this rumor so interesting is just all the possibilities and layers it can add to mapping and the end game. The possibilities are endless. Like, can you imagine each deeper level you descend to brings new risks and new crafting opportunities? This is where it gets really interesting for the end game. Right now, mapping in PoE 2 revolves around juicing maps directly using waystones, tablets, and the towers no longer handle that role. If delve returns, it could add a completely new layer to that system. For example, GGG could introduce delve-themed map modifiers that attach to waystones or precursor tablets. Think of it as an additional flavor of juicing, but one that changes how the map feels to play. You could use delve mods to introduce underground themed challenges like unstable caverns, corrupted veins, or mineral-rich zones that amplify loot drops or influence crafting materials. It wouldn't replace the current juicing system, it would add to it, creating another dimension of depth and decision making. And speaking of crafting, this is where the delve system could really shine. In Path of Exile 1, fossils and resonators allowed for more deterministic crafting. It's a system that gave players more control over outcome. It would perfectly complement the crafting revival that began in 0.3. I personally tried the fossils and resonator crafting in the previous Path of Exile 1 League, and I was amazed at how deterministic it was. It really was a great experience, and I loved the fact that this mechanic, the delve mechanic, gave me that opportunity in Path of Exile 1 to basically mold and make my crafting more deterministic. Now, it was expensive as hell. That's in Path of Exile 1. And if this rumor is true, we'll see how it pans out in Path of Exile 2. But it does add some very intriguing possibilities for enhancing the crafting in Path of Exile 2. And ultimately, this kind of system could solve PoE 2's biggest lingering challenges, giving the endgame more layers of meaningful progression, mapping, tablets, crafting, and now potential delve, all feeding into each other. If 0.4 truly aims to be the endgame rework, a reimagined delve could be the perfect final piece that makes it all click. Okay, let's come back down to reality. The 0.3 update was a massive win for crafting, but some would argue it still leaves some gaps for long-term depth. Now, I personally am fine with how the crafting is currently in Path of Exile 2, but I do agree that it has to continue to evolve. But players finally have a reason to engage with crafting again, thank God, because that was not the case in 0.2 and definitely not in 0.1. So again, this is all tied to GGG getting more closer to deterministic systems like the Well of Souls. But the process still feels a little static. And let me explain this, okay? You can craft great items, but you're not actively earning those crafting resources through gameplay loops. It's mostly random drops. A Delve-like system would change that. It would tie player effort directly to crafting outcomes. You explore dangerous caverns or fractured paths, find rare resources, bring them back to craft. It's rewarding, it's thematic, and it feels like real progress. Plus, it fits Grinding Gear Games' recent approach: reduced frustration, increase player agency. Players want to feel like they're in control of their builds, not just rolling dice endlessly hoping for luck. And on top of all of that, Delve has one key ingredient that PoE 2 Endgame is still missing: infinite replayability. Now, don't get me wrong, it's an infinite map, and you can map for a while, but eventually, you're being honest to yourself, it feels repetitive. Delve offers a way to keep us pushing deeper, literally testing your build, finding new frontiers. That's the kind of gameplay loop that keeps players playing for longer. Now, none of this is confirmed, everyone. The datamine info could change, it could have been wrong, or this could end up just being something completely different. But what I love about this rumor is that it fits perfectly into where Grinding Gear Games seems to be heading, giving players more control, more purpose, and more reasons to keep playing. If this Delve revival is real, it could be the missing piece that makes PoE 2's endgame finally click, bringing the gap between exploration, crafting, and challenge. And if it's not Delve, but something like it, I'm okay with that too, because if there's one thing we've seen this year is that GGG is listening. Each update is a step closer to the Path of Exile 2 we all want to see. So what do you think, Exiles? Would you like to see Delve make a return in PoE 2? Or should GGG keep pushing new ideas? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading and responding to as many as I can. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe for more Path of Exile 2 content, and join me live on Twitch and YouTube. Both channel names are SamyCaps. Right now, we are juicing maps to the extreme at my expense and peril, but to my community's enjoyment. Yeah, they're a fun bunch. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll hope to see you soon. Take care. The opinions expressed in this video are mine and solely mine. Healthy debate is always encouraged. Hate is never welcomed. So get over it.